Do all your friends hate you?
What friends?
Oh. Well, All My Friends Hate Me is the name of this movie. And this is labeled comedy horror. Now, a conversation that Kaylee and I had as soon as this movie was over was, while I don't find that to be an apt description of genre, I don't know if either one of us can come up with a proper genre title here that fits. Dark comedy kind of is the best we got.
Yeah. I think the dark comedy fits the best because this is definitely one of those movies where the horror elements are psychological horror and very, not even subtle, just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just not what I think of when we talk about horror. You know?
Horror is I don't know. I don't know about that genre label. I will say the horror of the film is the paranoia.
Yes.
Right? And that's just what it is. And so I think when you go into this movie, because this is about a guy who is going to reunite with some college friends who he hasn't seen in a long time. He really has moved away, and he has this new girlfriend that he wants to marry, and he's coming back to meet with his friends after years away, and they're gonna have a party at this friend of his dad's house who's rich, and when he gets there, his friends and him are not on the best terms, but they're like trying to be.
Oh.
It's an insanely awkward film.
So awkward. It made me so uncomfortable at so many points, just from like, it was like the social anxiety of certain situations.
Yeah.
That were just so uncomfortable. And
that's the horror.
That's the horror. And the paranoia, like you said, of like, you're kind of constantly throughout the film questioning what perspective is the correct one. So it's like, are you dealing with an unreliable narrator? Are you not? And there's so many different ways that you can interpret the film. And when it was finished, like you and I, we spoke about it for a decent amount of time, and we didn't really like land on one that were like 100%. It's that. Like, there's so many different angles that you could see it, from, which is great. I mean, I think that's what we both really loved about the film.
Yeah.
Is how much it keeps you guessing and questioning yourself.
I think that what people need to know and what's important is I think where the film is disappointing is in your preconceived notions of the film because of the genre label attached, right? So like throughout the film, you kept expecting something to happen because you're like, when is this going to become horror? Like where's the, when are they going to start hunting him? When's the monster going to pop out?
Sure.
When's whatever the fuck? And you're like looking at the timestamp and keep going like, all right, we're running out of time here. Is this ever going to be horror? And the movie ends and it's like, oh, no. And then you start to see like, oh, I guess the horror is in the awkwardness and the paranoia of our main character. But the paranoia is not depicted in any kind of horror movie way. We're not talking about paranoia like Toni Collette in Hereditary when she's like looking around, she's seeing creepy things. There's nothing creepy in the movie. It's not like that at all. So the horror label to me is just not accurate. It's a dark comedy with some
it's a psychological horror aspects.
God,
that's really what
horror
it is.
is not a right label.
It's just that's
I don't
like
want anyone to get in their head because I don't want anyone watching this and being like, oh, it's gonna go some way. People are gonna die or somebody's gonna get stabbed or nothing like that happens.
You could be like dark comedy, drama, little horror.
Like, horror is, I don't know about that. I will say that I think the film, if you can go into it not expecting anything, like you're not there for a comedy, a horror, anything, you just watch the film as is, I think there's a lot to take from this film, and I think that it's kind of great,
Yeah.
but like I could absolutely see people detesting this film, right? Because pretty much almost most of the characters are pretty unlikable.
Oh my gosh.
And you're just kind of always wondering why people are there or why isn't someone leaving. And you really do just kind of leave this movie scratching your head like the main character is, of like, what did this all mean and what am I supposed to take from that? And you're just kind of questioning everything, which is the point, right? So I think it's very effective and well done in that way, because you do leave it feeling the way I think they're making you try to feel, which is just confused. And I don't know what that meant, because there's a line that's said at the end by a character, and you're just kind of left going, did they mean that? Or did they not mean that? And I genuinely can't tell because of how the entire film plays out. And it's very important to the rest of the story that would take place after that, right? So you're kind of left on this cliffhanger, and you can depict it either way you want. And I feel like there's a lot of evidence to support either. And just being like, I think this was what they meant. Maybe not. Maybe, you know, but you see, I think what's great is that you adopt and kind of borrow the paranoia coming out of the film.
Absolutely. That's definitely the strength of the film, is that it's confusing and ambiguous in a good way. And like, as the viewer, you really are falling for all of the same tricks that the main character is. So you're in his mental state by the end of the film, where you're left questioning things. And it's uncomfortable, but I think it's a really cool film, and it really just is, like you said, you shouldn't get the preconceived notion about it being a horror film if you're expecting, like, you know, just some other type of horror movie. It's not that. But it is a really great film.
It's also not really a comedy in a traditional sense either. Like, there's not like, you're not going to be laughing much.
Well, that's why it's like the dark comedy, because it's not like slapstick or like goofy humor or anything. It's very like awkward situations and like weirdness happening that makes you just uncomfortable, is like the perfect word, and you just kind of laugh because you're like, that's fucking weird. Like, what?
It feels like it, and I don't mean this in a negative way, because sometimes this could sound like a negative way. It feels like a joke you're not in on.
But that's perfect.
But that's what
for the film.
Yeah, that's what his character is like.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big joke that he's not in on, and that's how you as the audience feels. So you don't feel like you're wanting to laugh, you're feeling like you want to just get the fuck out of there.
You're just
right?
Like,
you're just kind of uncomfortable with everything. They're having a good time and you're kind of not.
Oh my
But
gosh.
in a good way, if that makes sense. It's an interesting experience. It's streaming on Hulu. If this sounds intriguing to you, throw it on if you have Hulu. I definitely think it's worth a watch, but like, I think if you're like 30 minutes in, I say this a lot, but like, I think if you're like 30 minutes in, 35, 40 minutes in, and you're not feeling it, you're not going to feel it, right? I feel like, as we said, I feel like what held me back from just enjoying the film at face value was what I expected with the genre label. So I just kept waiting for this, like, something would happen. I'd be like, oh, that's going to come back.
Sure.
And that's what's going to bring the horror. And it doesn't. And so you're kind of like, what the fuck?
Yeah, your expectations really.
So that added to my paranoia.
Yeah.
Because I just kept looking at everything like, that's a threat. That's a threat. Right? So it's almost like a marketing scam for the film's story. They're like, no, throw the horror on there. It'll really fuck people up while they watch it.
It's a great idea if that was the plan. So just don't let your expectations get in the way when you watch it. And yeah, I guess like if 30 minutes in, if it's not your thing, you should probably turn it off. I think that's probably a decent amount of time to spend on something that might not be for you.
Yeah, because it's not going to have some ending that's going to be like, oh shit, I'm glad I stuck around for that.
It stays that tone and that like level pretty much throughout the rest of the film.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let us know if you watch it. Hulu, as I said. Bye.